Under the twin moons, her control snapped, and he watched her come undone. The moment Commander Elias Drake stepped off the dropship onto Soria 9, he didn't expect to be groped by a glowing alien botanist with 6 fingers and absolutely no sense of personal space. 1 second he was admiring the alien jungle, and the next, bam! An elegant blue-skinned female with softly pulsing bioluminescent markings had her hand firmly pressed to his bare chest. He froze. She didn't. In fact, her golden eyes widened, her pupils dilated, and her 6-fingered hand trembled slightly as if she'd just touched something both forbidden and electrifying. Dr. Lyra Vone, top-ranking xenobotanist of the Eliari species, had made a mistake. "Fascinating," she whispered, her voice a mix of curiosity and confusion. Her hand still hadn't moved. Doc? You planning to buy me dinner first, or?" His voice snapped her out of it. She yanked her hand back as if burned, then immediately scanned her own fingers, her breathing quick and uneven. "You're real," she said, as if that were somehow surprising. "You're not a myth." Elias blinked. "Last I checked, no. Flesh, blood, and a charming lack of subtlety." She backed away slowly, her markings flickering faster along her collarbone. He caught a sweet, musky scent in the air, alien but strangely pleasant. It clung to the air like perfume after lightning. That's when it hit him. She was releasing pheromones, and not just any pheromones. "Look, Doc," Elias said, raising his hands. "I don't know what kind of welcome this is, but if I accidentally tripped some kind of alien mating switch, we should probably talk before this gets weirder." Lyra looked horrified and fascinated at the same time. This shouldn't be happening. Your species, humans, are not supposed to be compatible with ours. We theorized you were extinct. Just a story." "Well, I'm full of surprises," Elias said with a smirk. "And still very much alive. And apparently stimulating?" She didn't laugh. She just stared, her eyes locked on his bare torso. The climate on Soria 9 was hot and humid, so he'd discarded his uniform jacket earlier during the descent. Now he was shirtless, sweaty, and standing in the middle of her greenhouse surrounded by glowing plants and confused science. Lyra swallowed hard. "I touched your chest. Your surface pheromone receptors are far more developed than any known species. I wasn't prepared." "Neither was I," he said. "You didn't even buy me a drink first." Still, she didn't smile. She seemed scared now. Not of him, but of something bigger. "I need to get to the lab," she muttered, turning so fast her long hair almost hit him in the face. He watched her disappear into the glowing jungle of vines and translucent flowers, each one softly humming with strange alien energy. "Okay," Elias said to himself, hands on his hips. "So either I just ruined interspecies diplomacy, or I just got lucky in the weirdest way possible." An hour later, he found himself summoned to her lab. He stepped inside, ducking under a glowing vine that tried to wrap around his shoulder. The room was filled with plant samples, biological scanners, and one very frazzled Eliari scientist pacing in tight circles. "You're disrupting my control," she said the moment he walked in. "Control of what, exactly?" "My biology." He raised an eyebrow. She turned toward him, arms crossed, but her skin betrayed her, glowing brighter, warmer. "Your touch activated a latent mating response. We didn't think humans could trigger it." Elias leaned on a console, trying not to laugh. "So, you're telling me I'm too sexy for your species?" She scowled, but her cheeks, if that's what they were, turned a deeper shade of violet. "No, well, yes, in a way. It's not just about appearance. Your biological signature is aggressive, dominant. Our bodies weren't designed to handle this much stimulus from a single touch." "Well," Elias said, deadpan, "my last girlfriend used to say something similar." "Commander, this is serious. The response is accelerating. I've already had to seal off the east quadrant of the greenhouse. The vines are blooming out of cycle. They're reacting to me, reacting to you." He blinked. "Wait, your plants are turned on?" She looked mortified. "They're bio-connected. They sense pheromonal shifts. And right now they think it's spring mating season. Elias couldn't stop the grin spreading across his face. Well, Doc, looks like I just became the hottest thing on your planet. Lyra let out a low, frustrated sound and rubbed her temples. I need to study you. I bet you do. She glared at him. I mean scientifically, she said, jaw tight. Oh, sure, that too. There was a long silence. Finally, she exhaled slowly, her expression softening just a little. This changes everything. You aren't just a myth, Elias. You're a variable we never accounted for. And you? He asked, voice lowering. Are you just the curious scientist? Or is this affecting you too? She hesitated. Her glowing skin flickered again. It's affecting me. They stood in silence, the tension thick between them. Then softly she said, touch me again. And I can't promise I'll stop the bond from forming. Elias looked into her eyes. He didn't move, but he smiled. Well, Doc, he murmured. I guess we'll just have to be very careful then. And neither of them believed that for a second. The next morning, Elias woke up in the quarters assigned to him, sweaty, confused, and surrounded by leafy vines that had somehow grown through the wall during the night. Okay, he muttered, sitting up and pulling a leafy tendril off his leg. I either slept through an alien botanical uprising, or that botanists' pheromones are more contagious than I thought. He didn't have time to think much more because the door chimed and then opened before he said anything. Lyra stood there looking slightly less flustered than the night before, but still visibly tense. She had changed into a more formal science uniform, but her glowing skin betrayed her again, soft pulses of bioluminescence rippling up her throat. I shouldn't be here, she said, stepping in anyway. Good to see you too. I didn't sleep, she added, crossing her arms. I can tell. Your plants broke into my walls. She blinked. What? Elias pointed to the new decor. Lyra's gaze tracked the vines that had breached his quarters. Her eyes narrowed. They're drawn to you, he smirked. Well, I am charming. Not charming. Stimulating. Your biological frequency matches a reproduction trigger for Class E flora across this continent. I'm a walking aphrodisiac, Elias said. Deadpan. Yes, she said seriously, missing the sarcasm completely. Exactly that. There was a pause. Lyra glanced away as if trying to avoid inhaling near him. I need a sample, she said suddenly. Of what, exactly? Your blood, possibly your saliva, and a touch resonance imprint. He raised a brow. Touch resonance? It's a neural echo left from physical contact. She looked genuinely embarrassed now. It's stronger if we repeat the touch. Elias stepped closer. So, to study the effect of my last touch, you want me to touch you again? Scientifically, yes. He didn't say anything, just raised his hand slowly, giving her every chance to pull back. She didn't. His fingers brushed the side of her neck gently, warm skin beneath bioluminescent markings. Her breath caught. Lyra staggered backward half a step, blinking rapidly. That was stronger than anticipated. Elias grinned. So I passed the test? She turned away, clearly flustered. That wasn't a test, that was a mistake. I'll make it again if it helps science. She whirled on him. This isn't a joke. You don't understand. Eliari aren't like humans. We don't choose mates casually. If the bond completes, it's irreversible. He sobered. And how close are we to that? Lyra didn't answer right away. Then she said, if we touch again during a pheromone spike, very close. A low alert beeped from her wristband. She checked it, then paled. Well, as much as a glowing blue alien could. What now? Elias asked. My body just shifted into pre-bond phase. He blinked. Pre-bond? It's a readiness signal. Biologically, my system is preparing to initiate a full reproductive imprint. It thinks you're a viable partner. Elias gave a dry laugh. That's flattering. But why do I feel like this is bad news? Because, Lyra said, her voice tight. Once that phase begins, every second near you increases the chance the bond will lock. Elias stared at her. And then what? She looked at him, expression serious, almost vulnerable. Then, even if you leave Soria 9, I won't be able to forget you. Not in my body. Not in my biology. I'll crave your presence. Your scent. She cleared her throat. Proximity. He ran a hand through his hair, trying to process. So this bond, if it happens, what does that mean for me? For you? She said. You'd feel drawn to me. Emotionally. Physically. It would get stronger over time. You might develop empathic echoes. You might even feel pain when I'm gone. There was silence between them. Heavy. Personal. Elias finally said, So, we're standing here on a jungle planet, surrounded by plants going into mating season, and one wrong brush of skin could biologically bind us for life? Yes, he let out a breath. Okay then. Lyra blinked. Okay, what? Okay, let's stop pretending it's not already halfway there. Her eyes widened, but he didn't let her interrupt. You feel it. I feel it. It's not just biology. Doc, you talk like it's all chemicals and signals, but I saw the way you looked at me last night. That wasn't science. She opened her mouth to object, but nothing came out. Instead, she said quietly, You're dangerous. I've been told that before. She took a step closer again. If this bond completes, we'll never be the same. He nodded. Yeah, I'm starting to think that might not be a bad thing. And the plants outside the window, glowing more brightly with every passing second, seemed to agree. Lyra Vone didn't sleep that night again. Not because she was afraid, but because her body was no longer hers. Her skin glowed constantly now, pulsing in rhythm with a signal she didn't want to name. Her palms tingled, her pupils stayed dilated, and every few hours her mind drifted, without permission, back to him. Commander Elias Drake. Human. Tall. Broad-shouldered, warm-blooded. Trouble he shouldn't have been compatible. His biology was loud, unrefined, chaotic. Human pheromones were all over the place. Yet something in his scent, something in his skin, had reached into her system and flipped an ancient genetic switch that hadn't been touched in generations. She stood alone in her lab, surrounded by softly glowing vines that should have been dormant at this hour. But they weren't, because she wasn't dormant either. Meanwhile, across the outpost, Elias stared at the ceiling of his quarters, wondering how the hell things had spiraled this far in under 72 hours. He'd been through alien wars, survived a crash on Titan, once punched a sentient rock, but nothing had prepared him for a six-fingered botanist with glowing skin who made his heart skip like a broken fusion core. It wasn't just her looks, or the way she said mating protocols like it was an insult. It was the way she looked at him when she thought he wasn't watching, like she was trying to solve a puzzle and already knew the answer, but was afraid to say it out loud. His door chimed. He sat up. Commander Drake, said Lyra's voice over the comm. Meet me at the South Lab. Now. He arrived 10 minutes later, slightly out of breath, slightly annoyed with himself for caring too much. What is it? He asked. I need you to help me break something. That caught him off guard. Break what? Me. Elias blinked. I'm sorry. What? Lyra walked over to a console and tapped a few keys. A holographic diagram of her neural system appeared, spikes of activity glowing red. My control's breaking down, she said, emotionally, biologically, and if I don't stabilize it, I won't be able to resist the bond. Elias crossed his arms. So, you want to break your instincts by, what, having me punch you? No. I want to shock my system, disrupt the chemical flow before the bond completes. He frowned. And you think I can help with that? She walked toward him slowly, like she was approaching a heat source she couldn't look away from. Your touch is the trigger, she said. But it might also be the key to controlling it. A controlled exposure. A test. A test, he repeated. Right. She held out her hand, her fingers trembled. Elias looked at her. Really looked. Underneath all the glowing science and nervous energy, she was scared. Of losing herself. Of becoming something she didn't recognize. Of bonding with a human she barely knew. And maybe wanting it more than she admitted. He stepped forward and took her hand. The lab lights dimmed automatically, sensing the spike in temperature. Lyra gasped, but didn't pull away. The pulse between them was instant. Like live current, hot and deep, winding through blood and bone and brain. Her skin flared under his touch, not just glowing, responding. Her markings shifted, becoming more defined, more symmetrical. Her free hand gripped the table. I feel it, she whispered. It's so strong. Elias leaned closer. Tell me to stop. She didn't. Her breathing was shallow now. It's working, the bond's pushing forward, and I'm still conscious, still choosing. You want me to let go? He asked, voice low. I want you to not want to. He froze. That wasn't science. That wasn't a test. That was want. He let go slowly, hands shaking. Lyra took a step back, arms wrapping around herself, her markings still glowing. That was enough, she said. Thank you. But he could tell she was lying. She didn't want it to stop. Neither did he. She turned away, pulling a vial from a nearby shelf, forcing her breath to steady. We'll need to run scans in the morning, she said flatly. Elias moved to the door, then stopped. Lyra. She didn't turn. This thing, between us. It's not just biology. Now she looked at him, eyes wide, vulnerable. No, she whispered. It's not. And outside the lab, the jungle bloomed. Flowers opening wide in the night, vines curling upward toward the roof. Every living thing on the planet responding to the same signal her body was now bound to. Human touch, human presence, human love. And, deep inside her chest where logic used to sit comfortably, something new had started to grow. Something dangerous, something beautiful, and she didn't know if she wanted to stop it anymore. The next morning, Lyra Vone didn't report to the council chamber. She was supposed to deliver her findings, supposed to explain the human contact event in cold, clean, scientific terms. Instead, she sat alone in her quarters, staring at her hand like it was no longer hers. It still tingled from the night before. She'd touched Elias Drake again, willingly, deliberately, and she hadn't stopped when she could have. The bond was growing, and not just in her, she could feel him. Not thoughts exactly, more like pulses, flashes of warmth, flickers of tension, little emotional echoes like soft ripples across the surface of her mind. Human bonding wasn't supposed to do this. But then again, nothing about Elias Drake had been supposed to. She stood up, ready to go to the council. The door chimed. Of course it did. He was standing there, shirtless, again. She opened her mouth to speak, but he held up a hand holding something wrapped in cloth. Before you yell at me, Elias said, I brought breakfast. Lyra blinked. Why are you holding it like it's explosive? Because I cooked it myself, he replied, completely serious. Which technically means it is. He stepped inside, unwrapping the cloth to reveal a mildly charred but very real, very warm protein wrap. Found some edible root clusters in the southern field. Tasted them, didn't die, cooked the rest. She raised an eyebrow. You tasted alien roots before checking for toxins? He took a bite of his own wrap and shrugged. Adapt and overcome. She stared at him, then slowly took the wrap. Their fingers brushed. That soft electric thrum went through her again, familiar now, unmistakable. She didn't pull away. He sat across from her, chewing like he'd wrestled the food into submission first. So, how screwed are we? Lyra hesitated. On a biological level, about 87% bonded. He coughed. That high already? You're extremely compatible, she said, and immediately regretted how that sounded. He grinned. I knew my ex was lying when she said I was emotionally unavailable. Lyra looked down at her food, her appetite fading. Elias, if this bond completes, it won't just affect me. He nodded, suddenly serious. I know. No, I mean, your body will change, your brain patterns, your hormonal cycles. You'll become more emotionally dependent. There could be neurological consequences. Some of our people lose themselves when bonded. Lose themselves. How? She met his eyes. They feel everything their partner feels. Long-distance separation can cause physical pain. If one dies, the other sometimes follows. He was quiet, the humor drained out of the air like oxygen in a hull breach. I didn't ask for this, she said softly. I didn't want it, but you don't want to stop it either, Elias replied. Silence, the kind that hums with everything they weren't saying. I'm not afraid of the bond, he said finally. I'm afraid of you walking away from it. That hit her harder than she expected, because she had been thinking about running, leaving before it locked in, escaping before it was too late. But now, sitting across from him, hearing his voice, feeling his steady calm even through the tension in the room, her heart, her biological resonance engine, to be clinical, was betraying her completely. Suddenly her comm lit up. A message from Central Council, immediate quarantine order. Subject, Commander Elias Drake. Lyra's blood turned to ice. They know, she said. Elias leaned over, reading the message. Guess they didn't like my breakfast. They're going to isolate you, study you, maybe detain you permanently. Humans were never supposed to trigger Eliari bonds. He stood up. Then we're leaving. What? You have a shuttle, right? One of those little survey rigs with atmospheric thrusters? You want to steal a ship? I prefer the term borrow indefinitely. Elias, this is madness. He looked at her, voice steady. Lyra, they're not coming after me. They're coming after us. And deep inside, through the connection they now shared, tentative but already tangled, she knew he was right. The Council wouldn't let this stand. Not the bond, not the proof that Eliari biology had changed, not the idea that a human had entered their genetic future. Her hand reached for his before her brain made the decision. He didn't flinch. Instead, he squeezed her fingers, and the soft pulse between them surged, deeper, warmer, as if the bond itself had heard their decision. Outside, the jungle began to shift again. Flowers opened, trees glowed, and a single vine curled around the outposts, antenna blooming wildly. The planet knew. The bond was real, and it was just getting started. They didn't run right away. They planned first. Well, she planned. Elias mostly checked escape routes and sharpened a knife he insisted on carrying, despite the fact that the Council mostly used biolocks and passive energy fields. Some habits. Die hard, he said when Lyra raised an eyebrow. Like getting arrested? She replied dryly. Elias just grinned. I prefer getting the job done creatively. They moved fast. Lyra transferred her research to a sealed data pod, bypassed internal surveillance, and remotely wiped every trace of Elias's genetic scan from the central system. She worked with cool precision until she reached the shuttle hangar door. It was sealed, hard-locked. She cursed under her breath. Problem? Elias asked, flexing his fingers. She didn't answer. She just scanned the lock panel and shook her head. Someone already flagged the shuttle for restricted access. We have 3 minutes before security reroutes. Elias stepped forward, looked at the panel, and without warning, bam! He punched it. The console sparked, the lights flickered, then the door hissed open. Lyra stared. That's not possible. See? He said. Creative problem solving. They slipped inside the survey shuttle, Lyra sliding into the pilot seat while Elias took co-pilot, flipping switches like he'd done this before, which he had. Twice. Once during a solar storm. The engines hummed to life. But as the shuttle lifted, the comm crackled. Unauthorized vessel, this is Soria 9 Central Command. Power down and prepare for security boarding. Elias looked at her. Ignore that? She didn't answer. She just accelerated. The shuttle ripped through the humid sky, cutting through the upper cloud layer, leaving the glowing jungle behind. For a moment, they didn't speak, just breathed, survived. Then Lyra laughed. Not the tight, restrained scientist laugh. A real one, unfiltered, wild. Elias turned to her. You're laughing while fleeing arrest? She looked at him, eyes glowing brighter than her skin. I just broke 7 Eliari bonding laws, committed genetic breach protocol, and helped a human steal government property. I think I'm having my first mental breakdown. Congratulations, he said. That makes you officially human. She laughed again, so hard she had to cover her mouth. Their laughter faded slowly, replaced by something softer, quieter. Stillness. Elias looked at her, really looked. And for the first time since they met, she didn't look like a scientist, or a rebel or an alien. She looked like someone he didn't want to be without. I felt something when we lifted off, she said suddenly. Fear? No. Relief. He nodded. Same. She hesitated. Do you feel it now? Elias tilted his head. Feel what? She reached for his hand again, her fingers warm and glowing, and the second they touched, it happened, a surge, like a wave of light inside his chest. His pulse quickened. His breath caught. Suddenly he knew what she felt. Not thoughts, not images, but emotion. Strong, raw, real. She was afraid. Afraid she was falling too fast. Afraid she wasn't enough. Afraid that if she bonded to him and he left, it would destroy her, and beneath it all, hope. A quiet, trembling hope that he'd stay. Elias looked into her glowing golden eyes. Lyra, I felt that. I know. Is that the bond? She nodded, her voice barely a whisper. It's starting. The emotional merge. It's slow at first, just impressions, feelings, but it grows. He didn't let go. I don't want to stop it, he said simply. She blinked. You don't even know what it leads to. Yeah, he said. But I know it leads with you. Outside the shuttle, the stars came into view, cold and distant. But inside that little cabin, the space between them had collapsed entirely. She leaned forward, forehead gently touching his. And for the first time in Eliari history, a human and an Eliari chose each other, freely. And the universe shifted, just a little. Because something new had begun, not an experiment, not a mistake, not a myth. Bond, and it was only the beginning. The stars outside the shuttle weren't just beautiful, they were alive. Lyra could feel them pulsing, like faint drums beating in the distance. She sat in the co-pilot seat, but her thoughts were far beyond the nav charts. Her fingertips glowed softly now, in time with her breath. The bond was spreading, not just emotional impressions anymore. Now she felt his heartbeat like it was her own. She reached up, touched her chest, and then touched her lower stomach. Absently, unconsciously, that's when she felt the third rhythm. A flutter, barely there, but real. Her eyes widened. Oh no, she whispered. Elias was in the back of the shuttle, shirt off again, of course, trying to reroute a faulty oxygen cycle panel. With nothing but duct tape and a wrench. Something wrong, he called out. She didn't answer right away. The flutter was stronger now. Not a heartbeat exactly, more like a frequency. Biological resonance. She was syncing to something inside her. No, someone. She stood up slowly, walked to him, and didn't stop until she was close enough to feel the warmth radiating off his chest. Elias, she said, voice soft, I need to ask you something. He turned, eyes playful at first, then concerned. What's wrong? I need you to touch me again. He blinked. You sure? Last time got intense. I need to confirm something." He reached up, brushed his palm against hers. That familiar spark shot through both of them. But this time Lyra gasped sharply. Not from Elias, but from the bond. It pulsed with 3 signatures now. She backed away slowly, placing a hand over her abdomen again. Her pupils dilated. Her bioluminescence flared bright violet, a color he hadn't seen before. It's not confirmed," she said, stumbling over her words. "But I feel there's something else in the bond now." Elias blinked. "Wait, are you saying—" She met his eyes. "We may have created a cross-species embryo." He just stared. An actual hybrid. He blinked again. "Okay. That's a lot." "I know. So you're saying I'm dad now?" She inhaled slowly, eyes glowing gold. "Possibly. The early resonance cycle is unusual. Eliari children aren't detectable until week 6. This is day 4. And we're already resonating with it?" "Yes." They were silent, then Elias laughed. "You're laughing?" Lyra snapped, arms crossed, emotions spinning in every direction. "I mean, come on, Doc. I've known you for 3 days? Now we're fugitives from your government, biologically bonded, possibly pregnant with the first half-human Eliari baby, and floating through space in a stolen shuttle that smells like plant sweat." She stared. "That's either the worst mission I've ever had, or the best first date in galactic history." Despite herself, a snort escaped her. "That is not what a date looks like in Eliari culture. I'd like to file a request to change that." She shook her head but didn't step away. "You're not afraid?" He stepped closer. "Doc, I fought cyborg mercenaries, wrestled a wild Nevrak beast with a broken arm, and once survived 2 weeks on a mining moon with nothing but protein cubes and broken sarcasm. But nothing's ever scared me like the idea of losing this." He gently pressed his palm against her abdomen. "Before I even understand what it really is." Lyra's eyes burned. Her throat tightened. Eliari weren't emotional. Not like this. They didn't bond this fast, didn't feel like this. But she felt everything now. His fear, his hope, his love, raw and forming like a new planet, messy and imperfect but growing anyway. She took his hand, pressed it tighter against her belly. Then she whispered, "It's already changing me." Elias looked up. "How?" "I used to need control, structure, data. But now, I feel things without needing to name them." She looked at him, voice trembling. "You make me want things I've never allowed myself to want." He leaned in close, forehead against hers again. "Good," he said. "Because I want them too." Suddenly the console beeped. Lyra turned, eyes narrowing. "Someone's following us." Elias moved to the front, scanned the radar. 1 dot. Fast. Unregistered. "Pirates?" he asked. "No. That's an Eliari pursuit ship. Military grade." He looked at her. "Your people?" "No. My people wouldn't risk a small ship like that in open pursuit unless they want something alive. Inside the shuttle." Elias exhaled slowly. "So they're not after me anymore." She nodded. "They're after us. And through the bond, now undeniable, complete, he felt the child respond to the danger. A ripple of protective energy washed through them both. Not psychic, not magical, biological, something ancient, primal. Their child wasn't just alive, it was already defending its parents. The Eliari pursuit ship didn't fire, not yet. It hovered behind their stolen shuttle like a hunter waiting for the right angle, silent, threatening, patient. Lyra stared at the scanner. "They're locking onto us." Elias stood at the rear panel, arms braced on either side of the emergency compartment. His jaw was tight. "How fast can this bird go?" "Not fast enough to outrun them," he cursed under his breath. "Then we don't run." Lyra turned. "Excuse me?" He walked toward her, calm but intense. "We're done running, Lyra. That thing out there, it doesn't want a diplomatic solution. It wants you. It wants our child. And I'm not handing either of you over." "You don't understand," she said, her voice rising. "That ship has containment fields, neural disruptors. They can sever bonds. They will. Let them try." She stared at him. Hard, and that's when she felt it again. Not just Elias. Not just herself, but the third presence, their child. It was awake. Not conscious, not fully formed, but aware. And it was resonating harder than ever. The glow around her fingertips intensified, then spread, across her skin, across Elias's arm, where their hands met. Their joined bond surged with a heat that wasn't physical, wasn't even measurable by HFY science. This was something new. Elias felt it first. A pressure inside his chest, not painful, just powerful, like something was pushing outward. Then the lights flickered. Lyra's eyes widened. "The child is responding." "To the threat?" Elias asked. "No," she said. "To us." Outside, the HFY ship moved to intercept, and inside the shuttle their bond reached critical mass. There was a flash, not of light, but of something deeper. A pulse. It radiated outward in a perfect sphere. When it hit the pursuing ship, its engines stuttered. Lights dimmed, communications went silent. Then, nothing. It simply stopped, dead in space. Lyra gasped. "The child, it created a null field." Elias blinked. "A what now?" "A dampening pulse. Organic, non-lethal, but complete. Nothing mechanical or psychic can operate in that radius." He looked out the viewport. "So, our unborn baby just shut down a warship." Lyra nodded slowly, stunned. "Yes." There was silence. Then Elias turned to her, eyes wide. "I told you it'd be gifted." She let out a half laugh, half sob, and covered her mouth. "We need to land somewhere, hide, regroup before they recover." "No," he said quietly. "We go public." Lyra's head snapped up. "What?" "You said it yourself. HFY culture doesn't adapt. But this child? We are the proof that it can. If we hide, they'll come for us again. If we stand, if we show them, maybe we stop running forever." She hesitated. "They'll put us on trial." "Then let them," he said. "I'm done pretending this isn't real." She stared at him, and through the bond, clear, calm, steady, she felt it. His love. Not biology, not pheromones. Choice. He chose her. Chose them. Lyra took a breath, then nodded. "There's a neutral zone on Valon's reach. Broadcasting station. Public net. We land there, we tell the story. Let the galaxy decide." An hour later, the stolen shuttle touched down on a quiet trade hub. 2 fugitives, 1 bond, and a child glowing faintly between them. When they stepped onto the platform, Lyra wrapped her arm around Elias's. She wasn't hiding anymore. News drones hovered nearby. Elias looked at her. "You ready?" "No," she said honestly. "But I have you." He kissed her forehead. "And I've got you." Together they stepped forward, into the light of the cameras, into the eyes of 2 civilizations. The HFY would call it scandal, the Alliance would call it impossible, but the galaxy would come to know it by a different name. Hope. Because that day, an alien scientist and a human soldier proved something no law could erase. That love, not war, not politics, not even biology, would decide the next chapter of the stars. And deep in Lyra's womb, the first heartbeat of a new kind of future continued to glow.